to go.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's show of the UGA Sports Call-In Show. I'm your host, Paul Maharry, joined alongside Ben Bachmann, Choppy as he was once known on the vault. Never going to lift that lift down. But, guys, we've got an amazing show for you this week. We're going to be diving deep into the UGA recruiting cookout that happened in Athens this past weekend, this Saturday, Sunday, and we're going to dive deep into that. Also, we want to touch on, and that's going to take a little while, folks. We want to get your questions. There's a lot of prospects that were in town that Georgia has big on their board that were in town. And then we want to touch on the position battles heading into fall camp. With all these transfers that came in, Tyke Smith, Gilbert, everybody else, Darian Kendrick, where are the position battles this fall? We're going to break that down for you, where we think the biggest position battles are going to be heading into fall. We could be completely wrong, guys, but we're going to give it our best shot. We'll know soon enough once fall camp starts. But, guys, while you're joining us, we're going to be tweeting out this link, making sure more folks can join us. If you're watching us, make sure our sound's good. Give us a thumbs up in the chat or let us know where you're watching from. We always want to hear where you guys are watching from. And the biggest part of this whole thing is, guys, we want your questions, whether that's through the chat on YouTube or giving us a call at 706-363-3773. And Ben, it was a crazy weekend in terms of just overall UGA recruiting cookout, as they call it. I don't know. Does it have an official name? I don't know if it does or not. I think they're just calling it the cookout, maybe. But
the cookout of the barbecue.
Yeah, something along those lines. Danny Blackman says, "Go Dog Sick'em," and Courtney Fisher says, "First time watching you guys live. Thanks." Well, we appreciate you, Courtney, and make sure to put in any questions that you have for us. But this cookout, Ben, had a lot of big prospects that Georgia was after. They got to spend more time in Athens, more one-on-one time with their position coaches, potential position coaches, and also Kirby Smart. So what was your biggest takeaway from this weekend as all of these recruits are now headed back home, or they're already home from their big weekend in Athens?
Well, the first, everyone's going to bring up who's like the flashy name who was there. I think that was Kamari Wilson. And I think Kamari Wilson right now going into this weekend, everyone knew Georgia had a great chance, or was at least the leader for him for a while, and maybe for a period of time Florida and LSU made it a lot closer. But right now, Georgia definitely hit it out of the park there. He brought like his entire family. If anyone wants to check out his Instagram and check out, like, I believe he had his grandparents, his parents, I believe he had siblings and cousins there. I think they hit it out of the park for him. And I think that's one which I'm going to release, the piece is going to be out either later today or tomorrow. It's going to have a full breakdown on it, but he could commit anytime. He could commit tomorrow. He could commit on signing day. So that's one that it's a visit that's very important because his decision timeline is so varied. And another one is Jacob Hood. I think myself, Blaine Gilmer, and Trent Smallwood put in the future cast over on Rivals.com for Jacob Hood to Georgia. That was the one where he had a very good visit. Matt Luke was all over him, and he's a priority target now. I've said this, and I've had discussions with Blaine and other people who work with us here at UGA Rivals who were talking about this O-line class, and it didn't need to have the big 4- and 5-star names, but you need, we and Blaine called it the developmental class, where you take a lot of guys with high ceilings, because it's going to be hard to sell a depth chart, and also to a degree the 2022 O-line class as a whole, not including Georgia, just from the top, isn't as good as last year. Last year had like 6 or 7 5-star caliber tackles.
Yeah.
This year might have 1 or 2. And Micah Morris could have competed for the number 1 or 2 tackle last year. So it's a big difference in terms of
Ben, are you there?
1 year.
Oh, there you go. You're there. It just chopped out a little bit. Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
Keep going.
I was saying it's a weak O-line year, so it actually works out well for Georgia. But Jacob Hood's a guy they are probably trending for right now, and they hit it out of the park for him. They had other guys. Griffin Scroggs was a guy who came in, he's committed to Georgia Tech, worked out, did really well. That's a guy that people should keep an eye on. And then I'm trying to think some other. Dylan Bell, who now that's one really to watch because now he's committing next week. He visited, and his commitment timeline rushed up from November, his birthday. Highest rated O-line target. He's a top 60 player in the country. He was in town. We hope to hear from him, to hear how his visit went. But he's a guy for people to watch because his father played at Savannah State. His dad's whole side of the family is from Georgia. He grew up a Georgia fan. He idolized Andrew Thomas. Georgia could see him play multiple positions on the O-line, and he's probably the prized O-line target. He's going to have a spot no matter who commits. He's going to have a spot in this class, and Georgia's going to recruit him till the end. He decides on January 4th at the Adidas All-American game. So those guys were in town, and I think it was a very successful weekend. And just because the guy didn't make it in town doesn't mean that Georgia is out for him or they're not going to land him.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I wrote down a couple names that kind of brought my eyes towards them. Madden Sanker, 2023 offensive tackle from South Paulding. He's a 4-star. Obviously, he won't help Georgia in this recruiting class, but I think he's a big-time prospect that Georgia's going after for that next class, in the class of 2023. Dylan Bell, also 3-star out of Houston, Texas. He's got 30 offers. So that normally when you see a 3-star, you see a kid that's maybe got 15 offers, from here, there, everywhere. He's got 30 offers, big-time offers as well, and Georgia's really in the hunt for Dylan Bell. He's a wide receiver out of Houston, Texas. I think we've got him listed 6'2", 205. He's one to watch moving forward. I think he had a really great time in Athens. Then also another guy like you mentioned, Jacob Hood was on my list as well. So you need help in the offensive line class for the class of 2022, and Jacob Hood, I think, is one of the big pieces for that class. I think they had a slip and slide. If I read into everything, they had a slip and slide. They had a pie eating contest where it ended up being a lot of pies to the face, it looked like, for a lot of these coaches and players and likes. One thing that you mentioned, Ben, that I wanted to touch on again was Kamari Wilson. To me, his whole family showing up. Not only just, his parents, but looked like he had a sibling or a little cousin or brother or somebody there with him that got to dress out in a football uniform. You said his grandparents were there. It seemed like one of those visits where, and I don't want to, push the cart before the horse, so to speak, but it seems like one of those visits where you bring the whole family, you get them all introduced to potentially your coaching staff at the next level. That's what Georgia fans would love to have, because I think he would be a huge addition for them in that secondary class. What other guys did you see, Ben, besides those that you were mentioning? Were there any other guys at that cookout that you think Georgia has a chance to land?
One thing I will say is I was talking about it to you the first time I ever called in on the show, is that last July week is a very pivotal week just to get momentum going into the season. It doesn't mean you have to land a guy or get a 10 out of 10 visit necessarily. But the one thing was, prior to the cookout, they had, I believe it was on Thursday and Friday, they had Deion Bowie back in town, and they had Bear Alexander. Bear Alexander was in town the day before the cookout for 2 days. So they got Bear back and Deion Bowie back. And those two were former commits. Bear's a top 10 prospect, and Deion Bowie is a top 100 player who's a priority target for them that was formerly committed. And those visits seemed to go well. I saw Bear Alexander was hanging around Devontae Wyatt, Bill Norton, and some of the D linemen. He was getting really comfortable in Athens. And for him to visit Georgia 3 times, the day before the previous dead period, his last visit was actually to Georgia. He snuck in, and he spent a whole weekend with Gunnar Stockton. So this was one where Bear Alexander, I think me, you, and a lot of people thought he would be committed to A&M by now. But from the looks of it, you may still give the edge to A&M, but this one's not over. Georgia's still in contention here. Obviously, I'm not making a pick for Georgia or anything like that, but Georgia's not giving up in this race.
Yeah.
And it's very clear that this one actually is kind of far from over. So that one kind of shocked me, because we weren't expecting him to be in town. He just showed up. And Deion Bowie, another one, I don't think he does too much media, but he showed up in town and seemed to have fun with a lot of family members as well. And Julian Humphrey committed to Florida. He's going to be back for an official visit. He actually used up none of his official visits except Florida, and he's really far away from their campus, so that might have hurt them. And that's the one last thing I want to touch up on with Kamari Wilson. I say this: Kirby Smart and Georgia staff, when they're successful, look at 2018 for an example, they play the long run in recruitments. You may not lead right now. Nyland Green was one they did not lead for. Smil Munn did last year. Auburn led. They played the long game with these visits and in these recruitments. Getting Shamar Stewart to get his last official visit, as he told Blaine. Getting guys like Kamari Wilson, they saved the official visit where LSU and other schools used it. They played the long run in these recruitments to get the last visit and then get the last big amount of face time, and that's why they've won a lot of these battles. So that's what Kirby's doing here. So that's one thing to monitor.
Another thing to monitor, the folks in the chat are asking Ben, and I wanted to get your opinion on it here. Ron Warbington says, is Georgia in the running for Singletary? And then somebody commented, Nick's commented and said, Jaheim Singletary decommitted from Ohio State.
Yes.
What's the thought process right there? I mean, obviously Georgia's big in on Singletary. He did not show up in Athens though. So what's the take on that?
I think it's Georgia, Miami. He's got really good connections with Will Muschamp. People want to talk about, I think two of his connections were, even though they weren't a big school of interest, he committed kind of early. He committed, I'm trying to think, this past January, and that was pretty early because there's still some people finishing up their 2021 classes. So he's been committed for, I'm trying to think, it's like 8 months or so there.
It's been a while,
and now
yeah.
visits are opening back up, and you think about it, I think with a kid like that, and I would say the same if Luther Burn were to decommit today, which I don't anticipate, but I'm just saying if he was, those guys are going to go until signing day. And I think it's Georgia and Miami. I think Florida might try, but I think it's those two schools, Georgia and Miami. And I think it's a close one because one had Will Muschamp and T-Rob were both on the South Carolina staff, which I think gave him either his first or second offer. And that definitely weighs on him, and they're DB guys. And Kirby Smart's been on him. He came to town on the 18th, and I wouldn't have been shocked if he came to town another one or two times because he's really quiet, doesn't do media. He takes visits, and it's well known out there. He usually visits schools and he doesn't tell anybody, and people doesn't know. I mean, I think he's on record saying that. So that's something to watch. So I think it's going to be Georgia and Miami, and since there's 4 months to go, I wouldn't offer up a prediction one way or the other.
But he is one to watch. You know, obviously Georgia fans were really big on him. He was still committed to Ohio State. Now he's not. I think Georgia's going to try to ramp that up as much as they can. You know, if they were to land Singletary and Wilson with the pieces they already have, that secondary class would look really, really nice. Obviously, you'd want Deion Bowie back, know, but Georgia, like you said, they're making steps in the right direction, having Bear Alexander back on campus, having Bowie back on campus. They're trying to build those relationships back up. What are we looking at in terms of defensive line right now? Because you have Tyree West, and I think that's the biggest position. We've got a couple questions over here, and we'll get to in just a second. But I want to know about this defensive line class because we've mentioned it for so long now. It feels like when we first started back these call-in shows, 4 or 5 months ago, we were singing the praises of Trey Scott. Everybody was, right? Yeah. Because Georgia was in the running for Walter Nolan, Travis Shaw. He had Bear Alexander committed. Tyree West, another 5-star prospect. And then now it's like, hold on. Is Georgia going after 3-star defensive linemen? What happened to these upper echelon 5-star kids? But where is Georgia at right now with the defensive line and overall just how is Trey Scott moving forward with the pieces that he has in place?
I look at this, and I'll try to be quick with it. First off, Travis Shaw, and I want this because everyone asks this question every year to Trent and all the guys, is this guy a take? Is this guy a take? Travis Shaw and Walter Nolan can sign with any school they want. Georgia would take them. If any 3-star, and I'm just answering this because this question gets asked. If a guy like Sean Washington, who Blaine interviewed, check that out on UGASports.com, was talking about, Georgia's really interested in me. Now, Georgia could take 4 D linemen. If they were to get him to commit, they would still take and recruit Travis Shaw and Walter Nolan. So don't just assume that guy commits and they're done with those guys. So that's for starters. Now, Travis Shaw and Walter Nolan, here's the thing. I believe Shaw was at North Carolina for just a day, and Walter Nolan went to a school that wasn't in his top 5, which is bizarre to me. But so a lot of the things with that is, those guys are going to go to signing day. So Georgia has all the time in the world for them. So hypothetically, if they have a great season, get more visits, they still could land those guys. Would I predict either of them to Georgia right now? Nolan is just, and I think you definitely swayed me that Nolan's one that's like, you don't want to make a pick on him right now. You just don't want to at all. Shaw, it's probably Georgia and UNC still. So if you were to make a smart bet on UNC, I get that, but with Nolan, it's really wide open. But the one thing to watch really is Georgia still has their official visit for Nolan and guys like that. And then one name that nobody's talking about, and I know Bear Alexander's one as well, is Hiro Kanu's a kid on the West Coast that nobody really wants to talk about. He's a top 80 player in the country. He's only played football for like a few months, and he dominated Mater Dei and St. John's Bosco. Like those schools that had DJ Ungalale, Bryce Young, they're 2 of like the top 10 high schools in the country. He dominated them. Those coaches, schools said he's one of the most dominating players they've ever seen. He's already a top 80 player. He comes from Germany.
Really?
June 1st looked dominant at Georgia's camp. People don't want to talk about him, but Georgia's probably second to Ohio State by a slim margin. So that's one to watch still is Ohio State. I think Ohio State might have a slight edge. He's going to official visit, I believe, for the Missouri game. either the Missouri game or the South Carolina game. So he's one also to watch. I think he could be a 5-star when the rankings are done because he's a guy with that little amount of time and that impressive body of work, he can shoot all the way up. So he's one to watch also.
We've got some comments over here I want to get to, Ben, and then we'll kind of wrap up the recruiting cookout and then move into those position battles heading into fall. But one guy I wanted to talk about real quick, Ernest Greene. What's your thoughts on him? I really like him as a prospect.
Yeah.
Was he able to make it this weekend?
Yes.
And where does he stand? Because I think that he, being a California kid, you don't see those kids make it to the SEC very often. They normally end up over there in the Pac-12 unless, they fall into the lap of an Alabama or a Georgia per se. But Ernest Greene is a prospect that I think fans should get to know. I think he's really good. Interior offensive lineman. What's your take on him before we answer these questions?
Well, one thing I'll say real quickly on him, as I said earlier, his dad played at Savannah State, and his whole side of his dad's family still lives in Georgia and Savannah, and are Georgia fans.
Yeah, you got chopped out when you were talking about that. No pun intended there.
Okay.
Yeah,
just like the jokes you're trying to make to me off air about chop. So Ernest, he's one where I think he's kind of wide open because you don't see any predictions for him. He's kind of wide open, but I would say Georgia, Ohio State, and then maybe USC. Because Ohio State, Wyatt Davis went to his high school, and obviously he was an O-lineman. I think that's one connection. That was his first visit he took. And then Georgia, he has connections with his family. USC's nearby. So those are the 3 schools you probably hear most. But he doesn't have a clear leader, and he's already said his decision date. He's going to be one of those All-American decisions. So, I think it was a good visit. I saw he posted somewhere a picture of Andrew Thomas, just a picture of the wall and him. And I know he idolized him. So that's something to watch. And one little quick nugget on him, I know he said a while back, Kirby Smart is the lead man in recruiting him. So that's definitely something, having the head coach be the lead recruiter there.
So, I know that I knew you were talking about him earlier, but I think, like I said, you got a little disconnected there. So I wanted to make sure if anybody was listening, he was one that we touched on. Ken Boyd says, first time with you guys, looking forward to all the dogs. Dog info y'all can pass along. DB Dog 7 says, how much has the trail went cold on Andre Greene, Ben?
Well, this is kind of my motto. If a guy's deciding on signing day or later in the process, I wouldn't worry. If his decision pops up, Georgia fans should worry about that one, especially if Clemson gets a commit. It's like a 99% chance, minus like Corey Foreman. That was a weird deal. And I think
Corey Foreman also got a tiger tattoo on his arm, too, so it's made it even more weird, to be honest.
At the time, and Georgia was the leader at the time. That was just bizarre. And then Ellis, that was a weird one.
Yeah.
I mean, also, I think he was recruited outside linebacker, which makes that recruitment made no sense. But anyway, sorry to get off subject there. Wait, what was the question again? I totally forgot.
Let's see. Has the trail gone cold on Andre Greene?
Oh, yeah, Andre Greene. Yeah, so Clemson just got him on campus, and I think that was his dream school. I remember talking to him as high school coach. That was his dream school, and they have a need at receiver. The visit, I heard they had a great visit for him, so they definitely have the momentum. So if his decision pops up, it's not going to be in Georgia's favor, but Georgia's definitely the biggest competitor, and they're still going to be in that race as long as it goes all the way to signing day like we expect.
Let's see here. Johnny Lester says, wait, what? Is 5-star D-line Bear Alexander leaning back towards the dogs? Don't tease me. I don't know if we said that, Johnny.
Not lean.
No, I don't think he's a lean, but I think anytime you can get Bear back on campus from Texas is a great thing. They were able to get him on campus for the recruiting cookout. Georgia's going to continue to go after him. We thought that by now he'd be a Texas A&M commit. That hasn't happened. So, it's interesting to see that he was on campus with Georgia for the recruiting cookout. And take it as you will. I think his recruitment is going to continue to keep going. I think Bear's liking the way that his recruitment's going in terms of getting all this love from all these schools. So it's going to be one to watch moving forward. But no, I don't think he's a lean just yet, Johnny Lester. I wouldn't put him in the lean category. If I was predicting Georgia's class right now, I wouldn't put him in Georgia's class. But I do think that Kirby Smart and Trey Scott and the rest of that defensive line, the rest of the defensive side of the coaching staff are going to try their damnedest to get him back on the committed side of things. Let's see here. We've got a couple messages about, Dante Green said, what about Mykel Williams? I want to move on to this position battles, Ben, but what about Mykel Williams?
Okay, so real quick, I will say I'm going to have a full breakdown piece on Georgia coming out soon, and I will say just a quick little stat for some people that worry about Georgia recruiting. As of today, with Jaheim Singletary decommitting, Georgia is tied with Ohio State for the most top 100 commits and most five-star commits in the country. And every school ranked higher than Georgia has more total commitments. And if Georgia still had Deion Bowie and Bear Alexander right now, assuming Quinn Ewers, which I think is interesting for anyone that's followed that situation, might reclassify to make him a 2021 recruit, Georgia would basically have the number one class, given Penn State has like 25 commits and they'd be only like a couple points out of Georgia. Georgia would be like the number one class at that point if they would have held on to those guys. But when it comes to, I'm trying to think who
Michael Williams.
Michael. Oh yeah. So Michael's one that Georgia's trying again, especially at outside linebacker. And I will say this about Michael. USC, Clay Helton's been on the hot seat for a while. And this is something why I always say don't always assume everyone is a done deal. And I know like right now nobody expects Malachi Starks to end up elsewhere or anything like that. But let's say a coaching change happens. That could spring something. With Michael Williams, Clay Helton's been on the hot seat. If he gets fired, there's a strong chance he flips to Georgia. If he sticks it out, USC with his, I believe, half-brother there, Michael Trigg, there's a good chance he stays there. But Georgia's trying, and I guarantee they're probably going to get him on campus another one or two times before he ends up signing. But that's one to watch. USC's season is going to be really important for a kid like that. And Clay Helton.
We also commented on here, we said, guys, it's might be time to do a Zoom with the people in the chat. We're looking into that, guys, to maybe get you guys on the show next to me. So if you're interested in that, let us know over on our Twitter or through
is that Roddy?
A DM. Yeah, I think it's Roddy.
Roddy's really excited about that.
Yeah, we've been talking about that, getting some guys on here that are in the chat into the actual Zoom with us. You can be on here live. Guys, as always, the phone line's open, 706-363-3773. We'd love to get your opinions. One thing I want to touch on, and you brought this up, Blaine, before we go I know we want to go to these position battles, and I want to bad, but you brought up a great point, was this Quinn Ewers situation with Ohio State, the number one rated quarterback in the class of 2022. I think he's number one rated prospect almost across the board in terms of just overall accuracy. He looks like the next Patrick Mahomes. But there is something that he might be able to, if he finishes one English class online, he could enroll at Ohio State, which would then prompt a close to 7-figure deal in NIL for him to be the backup at Ohio State and skip his senior season. Guys in the chat, I want you to put your comments. What if this happened to a prospect at Georgia? Would you be okay with this? Do you think this is taking it too far? Would you care? Do you think it's a good thing that maybe, hey, let's just hypothetically say this happened way back when Jacob Eason committed to Georgia, right? And he was able to come a year early, skip out on his senior season because he was playing in, I think, a smaller division up in Washington, so skips out on his senior season. He enrolls at Georgia. The NIL is going strong, and he's able to land a, $800,000 deal. Do you think this is good for the game, bad for the game, good for the player, bad for the player? Is this what we're going to see moving forward? I want your guys in the chat to let me know what you're thinking on that. Really do want your opinions, guys. Ben, what is your opinion? I'll give you mine in a second, but what is your opinion on that? Because it struck me as odd, but then I started looking at it, and I could see both sides. So I want to see what your take is on it.
Well, I just think $1 million for a college backup, that's crazy to me. That just to me is...
Well, I mean, it's not even a college backup. It's a high school senior because Ohio State has numerous quarterbacks up there. I don't know if he would even be considered a backup yet. But go ahead.
Here's the thing, though. Even behind the, I think it's going to be interesting to see if, you see a lot of top 10 prospects do that consistently now. Now, I've said with NIL, I was actually talking to a friend of mine about NIL once it came out, and on, I think it was July 1st, is a lot of for football, I think it's going to impact basketball more with the top guys because all of them are flashy. With football, it's mostly going to be the quarterbacks. So I'm going to be interested to see if more quarterbacks go, okay, I can enroll a year earlier and start to make big money. I'm going to be curious to see if that starts a trend. Now, my other thing is with Ohio State, since if Quinn Ewers reclassifies, that nukes their window at quarterback by a year because, he's going to be a 3-and-out guy. But also, here's what makes it interesting. If Quinn Ewers goes in and wins the job, they have like 3 talented quarterbacks there. Kyle McCord, who's a 2021 5-star.
Jack Miller.
2 others, C.J. Stroud and Jack Miller. All 3 could just transfer out, and they could be down 3 elite quarterbacks to transfer out. Or suppose Quinn doesn't start for 2 years or a year or 2. Does he transfer out?
Yeah.
Like, that makes it interesting. They're going to lose quarterbacks. There's no way all 4 of those guys are going to play. Like, McCord and Ewers could be the same class. So there's one of them is going to leave at some point. So that's going to be interesting to watch. And now what it does for Ohio State is it kind of hurts their recruiting class this year, and it makes it now they have to get a quarterback in 2022 or 2023 now. They have to get a good one. Before they didn't need to. Now they have to. So that's interesting what the ripple effect that's going to do on Ohio State and how it will impact college football, and also about NIL. I want to see if like Gunnar Stockton, some of those guys, if we ever see guys like that say, you know what, I'm going to make $1 million. I'm going to go and, enroll early.
Well, we've seen it. We've seen it in the NBA. They have the G League, that Ignite team, and Jalen Green was 2nd overall pick in this last week's NBA draft. Never attended college, went and played professionally in the G League and made some money. We've got some comments on this, and I really wanted to get your guys' opinions on this. Mr. Calvino says, I think it's taken it too far. You need emotional maturity as well as talent to move to the next level. I could see that. Dante Green says, get your money, young man. If it's to help the family out, that is what most of these players are trying to do. Hoggy Bears, he's talking about recruiting there. We'll get back to that. Martin Arenado says, good for the players, bad for the balance of power in college football. Smaller schools have no chance. And then Dante Green says, he's for it because most of these players are not going to end up making it to the NFL. I think it's just interesting, guys, and I was curious what your guys' take was on it, because, like I said, for me, I think that you get into this ripple effect, like Ben said, and are quarterbacks the only ones that could really enroll early and benefit from a 7-figure NIL deal, or are there other players, 5-star offensive tackles, that could enroll early and benefit from this? So it's going to be interesting to see if Quinn Ewers actually does this, and if it does set off that ripple effect there. Brett Weimer says kids may never make another dime from football. So I think Brett's on the path of get your money now while you can. I definitely see that side of it. I definitely do. Moving forward, guys, position battles heading into the fall. And this one's interesting, Ben, because we talked about it before the show a little bit, but Georgia had some really great transfers come in. Darian Kendrick. You had Tyke Smith, and you had Gilbert. So where are the actual position battles going to be for Georgia before Clemson and heading into fall camp? One for me is that other cornerback position. Obviously, you have Kendrick. We've heard a lot about Keely Ringo at the other cornerback position, but one guy that doesn't get talked about a lot, Jalen Kimber, is making big strides there. I still think that other cornerback position is open. And then for Ben, I think, Ben, you were talking about the offensive line being the one where you wanted to look into the most. Where's your pick for the position battles heading into fall? Because right now, if you really look at it, Georgia has a really deep roster at every position. Yeah. It's just finding the right kid to start. What position are you looking at the most, Ben?
Well, I think to an extent, especially when you look at a position like edge rusher, the depth. They always rotate guys.
Yeah.
Really every position when you look at that outside of quarterback and stuff like that is outside quarterback, really, everyone is up for grabs in terms of minutes and stuff like that right now. So, but for me, the offensive line, because if you put Jamari Sawyer at left tackle, it affects guard. If you put Sawyer at guard, it affects who's the left tackle, who could possibly be in the lineup. Where's Justin Schaefer? What side he's on? Is Tate Ratledge playing? The centers at Erickson or Von Braun? Is Warren McClendon really a lock to stay at right tackle? Maybe does he move to left? Does someone beat him out with guys like Mims and Jones looking really good? So I think the whole offensive line, they have the talent, I think, and the offensive line coach to compete with Clemson, but you don't really know. Outside of Jamari Sawyer, I guess you can say McClendon and Schaefer are also likely to start as well. But the other two spots, it's going to be interesting to see. If Sawyer's at left tackle, I think Tate Ratledge is a guarantee to start at that point. And center, it's a toss-up between two guys, Erickson and Von Braun. So it's interesting. That's one. And then I think another one, receivers. In what order is does Dominic Blaylock come in the slot role? Does he split with Kieras? Is he behind him? Where does Arian Smith go? His speed, is he basically a starter, or how many minutes does he get? Gilbert, he's new. Does he ever play tight end ever? How much does Washington, Fitzpatrick, and Bowers? So I know you're holding out on Bowers.
I am.
People are upset about that.
I am.
Oh boy, I think he'll be proven wrong on that, but that's interesting to see. So I think basically the whole offense, in terms of that, I think defense really, for the most part, I think outside of that one corner spot, I think you're pretty much know who the starters are.
Brett Weimer says Nyland ? And I think he was referring to me talking about the corners. I think Nyland's going to come along great. I am really high on Nyland. I don't know about you, Ben.
I am too.
Yeah. We're both really high on Nyland, but at the same time, I don't know if he's going to start day one. I don't see it. There's been conflicting reports coming out of Athens. Whether he'll make that jump or not, I don't see it right away. I see it being Kimber's position. Ringo kind of getting in there as well. Another position that I'm looking forward to the most is middle linebacker, and I've been saying it on this show for a long time, guys. Obviously, you have Nakobe Dean at 1, but at 2, you have 2 of my favorite prospects in terms of just overall film to watch in the last few years, and that's Quay Walker and my man. Nobody has backed this guy more than I have. Roddy Nabolsi backs James Cook, right? That's his guy. You know it. My guy is Channing Tindall. I think he's an absolute freak. I think he can rush the passer. You saw him last year. He had multiple sacks. I just think that he just needs a little bit more time, and he needs more playing time. Not more time in terms of development. He needs more playing time. He needs to see the field. And with Monty Rice leaving, that leaves a big gap in that middle linebacker position. For me, I would like to see Tindall out there because I think he's a game changer. I think it's going to be Quay Walker, though, but it's going to be one to look forward to. And Quay looked really, really damn good in the spring game. He looked like Lorenzo Carter. He was wearing number 7. He was jacked. He looked like a completely different kid out there. I think Quay Walker, and I said kid about Quay Walker. He's a grown-ass man now at this point. He was a kid when he came into the program. He had to gain some weight. He has turned into a grown man now. And I think Walker and Tindall both are grown men that could be fighting for that position. What's up, Ben?
One thing I want to add real quick. I know James Cook and you have Channing Tindall. To me, my guy has always been Adam Anderson. I think my bold prediction, this may be bold, I think he'll be a top 10 to 15 pick after this season. That's bold. I'm going with it because he, to me, if you look at it realistically, last year, Aziz the disease. He was everywhere, right? But Adam Anderson was just about almost everywhere, just as much as Aziz was. Get the snaps.
Yeah,
that's the
he
thing,
just didn't get the snaps.
If you look, I think he was top 5 or 6 in sacks in the SEC, and this guy was a backup. In games versus Kentucky, he got a sack. He only played like 4 snaps that game. I remember people were upset that he was on the bench. He barely played. He's a guy who you look at him, he doesn't get that many snaps, but when he's in, I saw in the Cincy game, he played against their starting O-line. Against Auburn, he was the most dominant player. Like, people talk about how great that Auburn game was. Georgia dominated. I mean, everyone looked good. Tyson Campbell looked dominant against Seth Williams, all that. The guy who dominated the game the most was Adam Anderson. I'm telling you, every play, Bo Nix was just scrambling, and you saw number 19. I think he truly, if he ever gets his weight under control, like actually can gain weight and get that under control, to me, he's the next Leonard Floyd. And that's not just saying because body type they're similar and that they went to Georgia. Just look at them; they play just alike. To me, he is the next Leonard Floyd. And I think this year he's the guy to watch shoot up from being like a 3rd or 4th round pick that he's going top 10, 15, like Aziz did. But, I mean, Aziz, his injury kind of dinged him a little bit from high school.
Donta Green says, what about MJ Sherman? MJ, to me, I think it was a great prospect coming out. I think he's going to kind of sit behind Nolan and Adam for the most part. People forget about this, too. Going into the fall, Robert Beal is still on the team. Robert Beal played big-time minutes for Georgia in terms of special teams. You saw him out there a good bit for Georgia last year. Robert Beal is one of those guys that I think, could see more playing time at that outside linebacker position. And then you have, I can't think of his name, Xavier Sori. Xavier Sori, the freshman, coming in. Similar to how MJ Sherman was last year, big-time prospect, 5-star prospect. I want to see how Sori and I also want to see how MJ Sherman progress. They have Sherman listed on the UGA official roster, 6'2", 250. I don't know if he was that big coming out of high school. I think he's gained a good bit of weight. I think he was closer. I really want to say he was closer to like 225 coming out of high school.
230 about, so he's gained at least like 20 pounds of muscle.
Yeah, they have him listed 6'2", 250 on UGA's official website. So great question, Mr. Greene, there about MJ Sherman. I want to see where he falls into it. I don't know if he's so much up for a position battle. He could be battling for that outside linebacker depth role, but Robert Beal's right there as well. So let's see here. Stacy Goble says Sherman played on special teams last year. Yeah, sure did.
He had an injury.
Yeah. But, I think that he's one to watch moving forward. In terms of running backs, I know you guys want to talk about running backs, and it's so interesting to me. And I was thinking about this, and I don't have this on here. Dave, if you're ready, we're ready for you, Dave, if you're watching. But while we wait on Dave, folks are just, I don't know what it is, and correct me, Chad, if I'm wrong, but I really feel like folks are writing off Zamir White for no reason almost. Like, Zamir had a really good year last year, and folks are almost like wishing that he had gone to the draft. So it could speed up the progression of Kendall Milton and getting the ball into Kenny McIntosh's hands more and getting the ball into James Cook's hands more. Zamir White had a good year last year.
Yeah.
Why? Is there a reason why? Is it because, Kendall Milton and his father, which love both of them to death, they're very big on social media. They've built that brand up. Is that why Zamir doesn't do much? I mean, he has his own brand, but is that why? I'm just curious because Zamir White's a heck of a running back. You've got a big 4 running backs, and then Edwards making it 5.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, man. I feel like the hate for Zamir White is kind of unwarranted. I don't know. Am I crazy?
I have to agree with you. I don't understand. Like, he had some games. I remember the Florida game. He was the running back with the opening touchdown on the Florida game, right?
You're asking me questions. Florida game, I normally get crazy blackout drunk. I'm just kidding. I have no idea, though.
Oh, no. It is the cocktail party for a reason. So, yeah, I think it was him. And then the Missouri game, he had some big runs. The thing is, he looks better each year. He's getting better. I feel so bad for him. Like, I'm pulling for him. One, I think he is criminally underrated. His vision at times is off, but his change of direction and everything, for a guy who tore his ACL twice in the span of like 8 months, I feel for him. Like, he last high school game tore his ACL, was ahead in rehab, was actually probably going to compete to play as a freshman behind Swift. I mean, just 2 weeks before the first game, ACL.
Last year for Zamir, guys, 144 attempts, 779 rushing yards, 11 touchdowns. He ran for 5.4. He averaged 5.4 yards a carry, averaged 78 yards a game. Donta Green says White wasn't cutting a lot last year, but I think he'll be different this year. Yeah, I saw it. I saw that he wasn't getting the cuts so much, but at the same time, I don't know. I just feel like everybody's so ready for him to move on. But if you go back, folks, if you haven't watched it, go back and watch Zamir Zeus White's highlight tape from high school. It is otherworldly. I'm talking Noel Devine type highlight tape. Noel Devine set the standard for highlight tapes back in the day. Zamir White is like right underneath that. I think Dave's calling us, though. Yeah. Hey, Dave, you're on with Paul and Ben. What's going on, man?
Hey, Paul and Ben, this is
there it is.
Nat.
Oh, that's Nat. That's not Dave. My bad. Nat, what's going on, man?
And apologies, Dave, if I'm in the wrong place. But,
no, you're good, man. You're good.
I think Zamir gets some poetic justice this year. He certainly deserves it.
Yeah, man.
What he's been through.
I'm just kind of lost. And it's not to say there were plays last year where it felt like Zamir didn't find the hole, or you were looking and you were sitting there and saying, man, maybe Kendall could do a better job at this. Maybe McIntosh could. I don't know so much if you could say Cook would because they run 2 different styles. But Nat, for me, man, I feel like people are just kind of throwing Zamir out and saying, oh, forget about him. He's had 2 ACLs. He's not going to come back. Last year, he rushed for almost 80 yards a game, 11 touchdowns, man.
He sure looked good. For what it's worth, they got it right on that first drive against Florida.
Right.
But no, I'm sorry if this is off the beat. But
no, nothing's off the beat, Nat.
Question I've been dying to ask you guys that follow recruiting as well as you all do. This is not a question that's local to what's going on this year or specific to any player or any team. But a lot of times in several of the recruiting classes, it certainly was the case with Richard LeCount. It certainly was the case with Brock last year, among others. And a recruit that takes it upon himself to be the alpha male and getting everybody to come in. And I've always wondered if y'all were aware of a situation where it was the wrong guy that chose to do that.
Huh.
And how is that handled? And have you ever seen that play out?
Man.
All of a sudden you've got 5 or 6 guys going, I've got 2 schools I love. One of them's Georgia, but the one thing I know for sure about Georgia is that guy that's been annoying the hell out of me is going to be there.
Yeah.
or any school. I didn't mean to look at
no, I can't think of one off the top of my head, Nat. I know that the leader kind of this year, you have Gunner, right? Obviously, and
Killebrew's up there.
Yeah, Killebrew is up there, but the guy for me really is Denylon Morset.
Yeah,
Denylon's really taken it among himself to be the recruiter for Georgia this year. I can't think of any kid recently, especially for Georgia, that's been a bad recruiter. And I think if the coaches saw that he wouldn't be a great recruiter, they'd probably just tell him, hey, we still want you, but maybe you're not the spokesman for our football program to these other prospects. It might just be as simple as that, Hey, we love you,
right,
but you might have a little bit, too much sauce in you, and you talking to these other guys might turn them off a little bit. But I think that the Georgia coaching staff's done a really good job recently of identifying the kid they want to kind of lead their program. And Killebrew did it early on. It seems like Denylon's doing it now. And it seems like
Spurlin.
Spurlin for the 2023 class. Yeah. But, it never felt like to me, and this might be a weird year, but it's never really felt like to me that this was Gunner's class. And not knocking Gunner. I've interviewed him quite a few times. He's got great relationships with players, and I think that he's going to help bring Delp to Georgia eventually. But I just don't think he's huge into – he's a Rabun County kid, man.
He's not built that way.
Yeah, he's a Rabun County kid. He wants to hunt and fish on the weekends. He doesn't want to end up in Athens every weekend. David Daniel was a huge one.
He was committed for what, 2 years?
Yeah, David Daniel last year was. Yeah, David Daniel was a big one last year, but I can't think of a bad one necessarily, Nat.
Well, no, that's good to hear, and I certainly don't know enough, as you all do know much more about that to know that actually has ever happened. But I've always wondered about that. I appreciate you checking into that. Y'all have a good week, and go Dogs.
Hey, take it easy, Nat. Thanks so much, man.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for calling in.
One that, and I really don't want to throw kids under the bus. I think one that was interesting to me was Florida with Lloyd Summerall and Keon Zipperer. I think those with the whole Chucky doll thing. I don't know if that ever worked out. Yeah, I don't know if that ever worked out for them. Not to throw them under the bus or anything like that. I've never interviewed or talked to them. I thought the Chucky doll thing was weird, and it seemed like you either loved or hated that. So it's just kind of my perspective on it.
You know what I find to be interesting is Brock and Gunner both. I know Brock especially is he hunts a lot and he fishes a lot, and I know Gunner is similar. They're not really big in terms of like big personality types. They're to themselves a lot. But Brock, he brought kids in during COVID, like Corey Foreman, Mason Smith, Zaven Story, Arnold, and Mims. So you have to give him that, but I look and say, like, Carson Beck was actually really good at it. Like, he was a guy, going after guys. I remember he would give interviews. He would say, I'm going for Tate Ratledge.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep Broderick Jones. I'm going for Keely Ringo. I'm going for this guy. I'm going for that guy. He would be vocal on Twitter. He'd be saying it the right way. And I feel like he connects with those kids because some of them were from Florida, his area, and he really connected with those guys. He was one that I think is really underrated. And so was obviously Justin Fields to me. I know Georgia fans don't want to talk about him, but he was somebody who connected with guys big time. I mean, a lot of guys came to Georgia because of Justin Fields. Luke Ford even admitted another guy Georgia fans don't want to talk about. That
I think folks like talking about Luke Ford. I think what happened to him with the whole transfer situation, having to sit out because he went back home for his ailing grandparents, is what it is. I don't think Georgia fans have any ill will towards Luke Ford, but I see what your point was. And not to knock Gunner, because Gunner is working on Bear Alexander. They had him out on the lake, so who knows. Dave, if you're out there, give us a call, man. Let's get into these stats. Let's see here. We've got some questions over here. Stacy Goebel said Zamir White will make his money this year. I agree. Let's see. As folks were asking us about Lavassier Carrell and if he's still on the defensive side of the ball, we think so. We think he's probably going to end up on that defensive side of the ball, at least for this year. And then next year, that running back room gets kind of crazy with James Cook and Zamir White leaving. You're going to bring in Branson Robinson, Jordan Bryant James. It's going to be interesting. I think we've got Dave
I have no
here.
idea what's going to happen there.
Yeah, I
have
don't
no
either.
idea what Carroll. I don't think anybody does right now.
Hey, is this Dave? Dave, you with us?
I am with you guys. How
Money
are you?
Dave.
Dave, what's up, man? How are you?
I'm doing quite well. I'm just doing a little extra research, which doesn't surprise anybody. But I just want to wish you and Ben all the best and stuff like that. But you were talking about Zamir White a little bit ago, so I have a little Zamir White stat for you.
Oh, appreciate that. Yeah, back me up here, Dave. What you got on Zamir?
In the last 25 seasons, there's been 13 different times a Georgia player has scored 10 touchdowns or more in a season. In the last 25 seasons, it's happened by 13 different times. I mean, some of the players had multiple times, but 13. 3 of those times, a player has had under 150 rushing attempts in that season. So they had 10 touchdowns in a season, 10 rushing touchdowns in a season, but under 150 rushing attempts. Can you name any of those 3?
How far back are we going here, Dave?
The last 25 seasons.
25? Dave, you've got to
You
cut
want to do
this.
Keith Marshall? Is Keith Marshall one?
Keith Marshall is not one of them.
No, yeah, Keith didn't. No, Keith, no. Last 25 seasons, 150 rushing.
Keith Marshall, the most rushing touchdowns he had in a season was 8. So he had 10 or more in a season, but last 25 during the last 25 seasons, three of them had less than 150 rushing attempts.
Man,
Burn Haynes.
No. You mentioned Zamir White, so he's one of them.
So Zamir's one.
Olandis Gary is another one in 1998.
Wouldn't have got that.
Rushing touchdowns. And Thomas Brown.
Also
had 10
I was guessing Burn
in 2007. So and so when Verron Haynes, obviously everyone loves the whole Verron Haynes story. The most rushing touchdowns he had in the season was 7.
Oh,
really?
So, yeah. But he had a 200-yard game, which not many people have. So that's always any catches like big time passes with under 10 seconds left at Tennessee. So he has that going as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's Zamir White was tied for 8th in the last 25 seasons with most rushing touchdowns were 11. Only one game he did not have a rushing touchdown last year. Do you remember which game that was?
Ooh. Was it? Ooh. I don't want to cheat here. Was it Mississippi State?
It was Mississippi State that JT Daniels.
Because
it was all passing.
Yeah, it was all passing. Yeah.
Yeah. Correct. So yeah,
Let's
he
go.
had at least one touchdown rushes in every one of those games. And speaking of the passing attack, I don't have too many more stats for you, but yesterday was AJ Green's 33rd birthday. So I want to shout out to AJ Green, who's a pretty good dog, damn good dog as well. But here's a one last trivia question. Speaking of AJ Green, who can you name the top 4 players, former Georgia players, with the most career receptions in the NFL?
Hines Ward.
Hines Ward is number 1 with 1,000.
Well, AJ Green's on there.
AJ Green.
AJ Green is number 2 with 649.
Ben Watson.
Ben Watson is number 3 with 547.
Come on.
Who has the 4th most receptions by a pro dog.
I feel like this dog is old. Is old school dog right here, Dave. Is this an old school dog?
He's an old school dog, but a damn good dog.
Oh man,
It can't be Terrence. Terrence only played like a year in the league.
No.
Correct.
Oh, man. Old dog, but he was a damn good dog. I don't know.
It would be Herschel Walker. Herschel Walker had 512 receptions in the NFL.
Wow. And it honestly, Dave, it honestly popped in my head.
Oh, he said damn good. Everything get that.
I know. It popped in my head. I was like, and I went back to, I went back to the Buck Bellew team, and I was like, all right, yeah. Herschel, no, not Herschel. Wow. Jay Ships put Malcolm Mitchell number 4 in the chat. Where's Malcolm on that? Is he close?
Malcolm Mitchell. Let's see. Malcolm Mitchell. Let me check
He
down.
didn't play that long.
But he
didn't
caught.
play that long.
What about Chris Conley? Chris Conley might be higher than Malcolm Mitchell.
Oh, Chris Conley.
Malcolm Mitchell is 47th. He only had 32 receptions. And this is like regular season.
Where's Chris Conley?
Chris Conley's got to be up there.
Chris Conley's got to be higher than Malcolm Mitchell.
Yeah.
He is 15th right now with 191.
Okay, so he's higher up.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So I'll read off the top 10 really quick.
Yeah. Give us the top 10.
Orson Charles.
Hines Ward 1, AJ Green 2, Ben Watson 3, Herschel Walker 4, Randy McMichael 5.
Oh.
Jimmy Orr 6. Jimmy Orr just passed away, by the way. Or last year. Bobby Walston 7, Andre Hastings 8, Todd Gurley 9th. Jermaine Wiggins 10th. Garrison Hurst 11th. Max Strong, Horace King, Clarence Kay, Chris Conley, Reggie Brown, Rodney Hampton, John Carson, Terrell Davis, and Dan Edwards round up your top 10.
Wow.
Top 20.
Terrell Davis, I thought would be higher.
Wow, that just kind of goes to show you, Dave, that in terms of pass catching, whether it be wide receivers, tight ends out of the UGA, there hasn't been a ton of success in the league. Maybe George Pickens can change that for Georgia moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of there's a lot of good ones.
Right.
There's not the elite ones like the Hines Ward, AJ Greens, and such. I mean, I think AJ Green, you have to consider was an elite wide receiver before he got hurt, wise.
Right.
But I mean, now at Arizona, Arizona has a more of a crazy passing attack. You might get a little bit more action out there.
Might be a little good value later round fantasy pick. AJ Green, you heard it here first.
There you go. Well, thank you guys both for having me on, and I appreciate talking to you each week.
Hey, Dave, as always, man, we appreciate the trivia.
No problem.
See you, man.
Yeah, that one upsets me. I feel like,
dude, I clutched. I'm telling you,
it was the damn good dog.
I'm telling you, I clutched Ben Watson at number 3, though. I clutched that out. Would not have had he gone top 5, I would not have had Randy McMichael at number 5. So is what it is.
I thought Orson Charles. I thought maybe.
Yeah, and Orson wasn't even in the top 20. I don't think when he ran out to top 20.
Yeah,
wasn't in the top 20.
like Malcolm Mitchell, like he was really good at Georgia, but I remember he was only on the Patriots for what 3 seasons maybe.
Yeah.
I don't think he was ever a starter, so that's why I was worried about that one.
Well, guys, if you have any other questions, put them in the chat real quick. If not, we're going to do the sponsor thing real quick because I always seem to forget this. Guys, Mainstay Construction sponsors the show. Their phone number is 678-539-0597. They do all the exterior work here in Northeast Georgia, roofing, siding, gutters, and more. Give them a call if you need any help with any of those things, 678-539-0597. And I know they're good folks because happens to be my company there. Yeah, so there we go, guys. As always, the sponsor comes up right at the end of the show because I totally forget to put it in the middle of the show, but we appreciate you guys watching. Next week, we'll have some more talk about football recruiting. We'll talk more about position battles, fall camps close to getting underway. What are we, 4 weeks? Next week will be 4 weeks away. August
1st today. So.
Yeah. Next week will be 4 weeks away from Georgia and Clemson. I think they kick off September 4th, if I'm not mistaken. So
it is Labor Day weekend.
Yeah, so we will be moving closer and closer to that. Fall camp is right around the corner, guys. Football is starting to ramp up in a big way. And as always, we appreciate you watching. Let's see here. That was not a question. Those are folks talking to each other there. Guys, thank you so much for watching. For Ben, I'm Paul Maharry. Thank you again. We'll see you next Sunday, 7:30. If I can get Ben on here at 7:30. Sometimes we're a little late, guys. Don't worry. I blame it on Ben, okay? And
my links.
Yeah, guys, we can't wait to see you guys next week. Stay safe this week and enjoy the week.